So hey guys, I wanted to give a step-by-step guide to the airport quarantine for coming to Korea if you're on a short-term visa, which I am. The reason I wanted to make this video is because I really can't find any information out there about what you're gonna go through as soon as you come to the airport, or do you need to prepare anything? And so I'm sure that other people are confused just like myself. So now that I'm going through it, I feel like I can give a pretty detailed description of what's going to happen to you before you go to Korea, when you come to Korea, and during the quarantine. So I'll probably make a couple videos about the different parts of it. For this one, I want to talk about getting to Korea, and once you come here, going through quarantine and going through customs, and how do you get to the facility and whatnot. Okay, so first things first, I was flying out of Seattle. It seems like there's a certain airports you can only fly out of. I'm from Minneapolis. I couldn't fly out of Minneapolis even though they had direct flights that ended kind of in March. So my boyfriend flew out of LAX because that was what was cheapest at the time when he left about a month ago. And then I was searching for flights, and kind of the cheapest thing ended up becoming Seattle. And it was like a vastly different price. So I don't know why some places are used as the one place to fly out of. I was talking to a couple other people on my flight. They were saying that as well. But the first thing that you do is I boarded in Seattle, and to get on the plane, you need to have your temperature taken. So I got my temperature taken, and it was 99.6, which is a little bit high. So I got a pink sticker on the back of my passport, which means I have to wait another 10 minutes to try and cool down. So I took off my jacket. I'm trying to cool down and get as cool as possible and drink some water. So we'll see what happens. So I had done that. I took off my jacket, tried to cool down, not carrying anything. And I had went back up in 10 minutes and I was fine. I had gone down a degree or something and I was totally fine. And they put a little sticker on my passport saying, all right, you can go. But as I'm waiting for my flight, I see a bunch of other people kind of get stopped for being too hot too. And you get 3 chances or else you cannot get on the plane and you cannot fly out. So I got my sticker, I got on the plane, like I felt fine. It was cool.
Hands often with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. Avoiding touching our eyes, nose, and mouth. And covering our cough or sneeze with a tissue or into our arm. For more information, please visit the website below. Having you on board is a privilege we work to earn every day in good times and especially during these challenging times.
All right, and next up is on the flight. Usually if you're traveling abroad, you'll get like this arrival card, which you have to fill out in a customs declaration form, but you also get 2 additional pieces of paper. So this is to state what your symptoms are and where you would be staying after the quarantine or during the quarantine if you have a long-term visa. So you have to fill out 4 pieces of paper and you need to keep track of all of them. That's really important. So keep your papers really nicely. Usually I keep mine in my passport. So after that, it was just like a normal flight, like other than there weren't middle seats, and I think there's not that much business of like tourism, so people flying over, so there weren't as many people on the flight. So I had nobody sitting next to me, but I had people directly in front of me and directly behind me and across the aisle. So it wasn't really social distancing. Everybody had a mask on for the whole flight, but I would say like we obviously all had to eat our meals on the flight, so people were taking their masks off then. So as far as like social distancing and not being able to get it from that, I don't think an airline is really gonna do the best job of keeping you safe. Okay, so the next step is deplaning and beginning the whole process of going through customs. So you normally get off the plane as you would, but the first thing that you do is you walk down the long hallway and you go through the quarantine booths. Now this is pretty normal. Every time I re-enter Korea, you have to walk through. Sometimes you have to give a paper if there's like an outbreak in the country that you're from, or you just walk through and they just kind of like look at you to make sure you're not too sick. But when I come this time, it was much more regimented. I had to go in a certain line for foreigners, and they took my temperature, which wasn't a fever luckily, and then they had said, okay, so since you don't have a fever and you've marked that you have no symptoms at all, you have to go get in this line. Now, this can be different if you say that you have symptoms. So my boyfriend had gone through this process about a month ago, and he had reported that he had some of the symptoms. So when he gave the paper, what they had told him is you need to go get tested immediately, and you can't go anywhere until your test results come back. So he had to go and get tested immediately in that initial quarantine area, and then wait in like a little booth with the only thing in there was like a chair for like 6 hours until he got his results. But they didn't really, they gave him like a sandwich and like one thing to drink, but there really wasn't anywhere to get water or anything like that. So it was just 6 to 7 hours of just waiting. So he ended up taking a lot of naps on the floor. Luckily, I haven't had any symptoms at all, so I marked no symptoms on my checklist, and they just took my temperature, which wasn't a fever, and so they said, okay, you can go to the next step. And the next step was going to this little area where it was a bunch of people standing, and like I'm saying, there's no social distancing going on. Everybody's kind of packed in there. But there's a bunch of these like people in gowns, like the masks, face shields, and things, helping you download the self-quarantine app and putting all your information in there. So one thing you will need is a Korean phone number, and it needs to be something that someone can answer. So if you don't have a Korean phone number, there's a little place where they're selling SIM cards that you can get, but I didn't really know what that was until I was already through the line and I had seen it behind me. So I had like put down Brianna's number thinking that, you know, they just need it for a phone verification or something. But no, this number is really, really important. And I didn't know that. So I kind of got Brianna into some responsibilities for being my guardian and whatnot. And I didn't know it was going to be so involved with whoever's phone number I could put down. So after you get this app installed, you go through the line, which again took like 40 minutes. So I guess from the beginning to where I am now is probably an hour of just waiting in line. So after you get the app installed, you go through this line, and then there's a bunch of like agents and people like taking your information. In this step, you just need to provide the paperwork that you had filled out and like saying that you had gone through the initial quarantine. And then they'll call your contact. Your contact, whose ever Korean phone number you had, absolutely has to answer. So this was another problem that I ran in because I didn't know any of this before going in. So I had put Brianna's phone number down. Well, she was teaching at this time. It was like 4:40. Luckily, her class ended in 5 minutes, and all I had to wait was 5 minutes until she answered. And they had just confirmed that I was going to be staying with her at that address after I got out. And so she picked up the phone, answered, and everything got checked off the box. So I finally got through that part. And after that, I'm going through what's regular customs, but I have to fill out even more paperwork. So it's just repeating the same information, the phone number, the address I'll be staying at, and how long I'll be staying, and do I agree to the government restricting my activities and where I go. So you have to sign all this paperwork, like the formality of it, just to make sure that you're down with everything. So there was confusion here, just because they made me do everything that I had to do if I had a long-term visa, but I didn't. So kind of like once I got to customs, they're like, oh, you don't have a visa? Okay, well, just take this paperwork, even though this is mostly like, we're just going to direct you to where you need to go for the facility. So this is just information for afterwards. So anyway, I quickly get through customs. It's not an issue other than verifying the address and the phone number. And I go downstairs where you pick up your luggage. And that's where you usually pick up your luggage. So that's normal. You just go to the baggage claim and get your stuff. But as you're going through this process, you get a series of lanyards. Like, I got 2. One was just to say that I was in the airport and I was not out of quarantine yet. And then the second one was to designate me to go to the facility. And so after I got that red lanyard saying that I was going to go to the facility, I got my bags, and as I was heading out, the people in gowns stopped me and were like, all right, you go over here, delete the app that you had just downloaded and set up, and download another app just for self-checking like your symptoms. So I got that done, and as soon as you get that done, they kind of send you on your way to the testing station. So the next part is you walk outside and you go to the testing station. This is kind of walkthrough, and again, this is waiting in another line with a lot of people. So that took about an hour to get through that line and get through that part of it. So I had to wait to get tested, and then you give your information, you give your passport. They want to know what flight you were on and things like that. So keep your boarding pass or you need to remember this. So finally I get through to the testing, and they do the testing really, really quickly. They do a nose swab, which it was very uncomfortable when it first happened, but I didn't even notice it ending. Like, it was just, I had seen her like with the thing in her hand and I thought it was still my nose. So I was like, oh, it's already over. And then they'll do your throat as well. And this takes like 30 seconds. So all this information gathering takes so much time, but the actual test is like 30 seconds. So after you get your test and you're done, you get your things and you walk over to the bus area, which is being guarded by a bunch of police. And I think they're just there to direct you. So you put your stuff on the bus and you get on the bus. I had kind of heard that there was a long wait because you had to wait for other foreigners to come get on the bus, or not even foreigners, but whoever was going to do this, this quarantine stay at the facility. But it left really quickly after we got on. So it was maybe 20 more minutes of waiting on the bus. And then they informed us we needed to go 1 hour to Gimpo, to where the facility was going to be. So we rode on the bus for an hour and we got to the facility, which is just a hotel. This is the Ramada Encore in Gimpo. It's on the Han River. So I actually have a really nice view of the Han River. But, so once you get there, it's not just check in, go to your room. You have to wait in line again. And I would say this probably took another hour or hour and a half just waiting in line as they take the same information that they had been taking since I showed up. It takes a long time. I get there's a bureaucracy to it, but it's annoying. In this part, they'll ask you for your boarding pass. I had thrown my boarding pass away or thing, or just lost it, but I didn't have it. And it turned out to be not an issue at all. But if you just want to make sure you have all your ducks in a row, make sure that you keep your boarding pass, just so you can show them where you were sitting and what exact flight you were on. So during this process, after giving them my information, and I think they were just logging in what room I was going to be in, then I had to go in the same room with more gowned up people, just go pay for the 14 days, which is 100,000 won a day for 1.4 million won. It ends up being about $1,200. So you had to pay for your entire stay. So after that, we just all had to go to the elevators individually, and only one at a time went to the elevator. And then we were in charge of getting to our own room. And once we got to our own room, this is what we have. I'll do a video later on just like a room tour and all the things that they provide. But they did provide like a bag with water, toilet paper, and a bunch of other stuff. I'll show it to you. But yeah, so that's kind of the whole process. And I'm telling you, I didn't know anything going into this. I hope this can be helpful to people, because I was just nervous, kind of running around, like not knowing what was going to happen, like where I was going to go, what I needed to do, what paperwork needed to be figured out. I will say there's a lot of people to help you, but I just wish I would have known more going in. But anyway, if you have any more questions, you can comment on the video and I'll try and get back to them, or Brianna will try and get back to them. So I hope that's helpful. Thank you.